After a rigorous selection process, the city of Vienna has selected a new chief of police. Our Cassidy Fury talked with Mayor Chad Emmerich and Chief-Select Joshua Cole today at the Vienna Police Department.
The city of Vienna announced a new chief of police Wednesday in a Facebook post made by Mayor Chad Emmerich. Emmerich said Lieutenant Joshua Cole has served in various roles within the Vienna Police Department throughout his career.
I believe as a city, we are going to see great things come from Chief-Select Cole as he assumes his new duties. We're going to see a lot of, I believe, innovation and new ideas that are going to come that are going to strengthen our community and provide and continue to provide that safe environment to our residents.
Cole said his first priority is maintaining and developing the existing culture within the Vienna Police Department.
We got to really focus on recruitment. I think agencies across the country, that's a major issue they're tackling. So I think we can do that through continuing to develop our culture. We have a good culture in Vienna. Just make our guys as good as they can be, support them, give them the equipment, the training, and just the overall support we get from the community is going to help with that.
The selection process was rigorous, Emmerich said, with 3 extremely qualified candidates trying for the position.
Lieutenant Cole exceeded the standard on every possible qualification when it came to the process that we put him through. He rose to the top in the physical assessment and the written exam, and in the board process, he was the #1 selection across all of the board members independently.
Emmerich said Cole's experience in public safety, leadership, and community engagement will serve him well in his new role.
I've looked up to Chief Powell most of my career. He was a senior officer when I was hired. So he's somebody I've always looked up to and went to for advice. Right now we're just currently going through the training process. I'm sure I'll have questions for him through the whole thing and after he's gone.
Current Chief of Police Carl Powell said he had no issues with the mayor's selection of his replacement.
I think the city's going to be in good hands and he will take the police department into the next generation.
Cole said he looks forward to working with the city and learning more about the administrative side of things. Reporting from Vienna, I'm Cassidy Fury with WTAP News.